Nighttime on still waters. This is NB 506812, narrowcasting into the night from somewhere on Britain's waterways.
September, Thursday. Clouds pillow and pile. Black skies behind us. A fleeting sun catches the scarlet of bryony berries that wrap themselves around the spiky vines of midnight blue blackthorn. The canal reflects the flight of a raven passing overhead. The geese are beginning to gather, filling the air with their wild songs on the wing. And earlier, the sun set in a glow of tangerine and apricot. It's very nearly a full moon tonight, and a blustery wind from the southeast ruffles the waters and sets the clouds racing. This is the narrowboat Erica, narrowcasting into the dark by the light of a harvest moon, to you, wherever you are. You made it. It's so good to see you. I was hoping you'd be able to come. It's a beautiful night, scented with autumnal promise. The door's open, the kettle is on, and there's a seat waiting for you. So come on in, make yourself comfortable, and welcome aboard. The grass, for so long parched, raspily dry, worn down to its roots until only dust and hard-baked earth was visible, is beginning to green again. Almost overnight, new shoots emerge. And puddles form for a short while in the old familiar depressions before seeping away into the thirsty ground, or evaporating back up into the warm, gusty air. Petrichor and rain thrum on the cabin's sides and roof. Mostly short showers, but showers nonetheless. And we'll take what we can get. For so long we've agonizingly watched the charts and weather radar, watching the approach of heavy rainfall, only to see it either divide and move south and north of us, or just dwindle and disappear before it reaches us. But now it's coming. And it's been coming in the best way possible. Gentle showers rolling in one after the other. Then later, heavier bursts that drum and rattle on the roof and create bubbles in the canal water, aerating the sullen, hypoxic water. Drought combined with the lack of boats to stir up and aerate the water has meant that the fish are suffering. They've been floating nearer the surface, gulping air in through their mouths, never a good sign. The crack and roll of thunder is as good a sign for them as it is for us and the land. We've a long way to go yet. Several months of sustained rainfall significantly above the long-term average is what the official sources are saying, in order to restore the depleted reservoir levels and replenish the groundwater. But for now, this is good and welcome. In fact, it's amazing what even this short spell of rain and showers has achieved. Locally, the water has almost returned to its original levels. No more stepping down onto the boat, and Maggie can once more reach the canal in her favourite drinking spot. The navigation closure relating to this part of the canal has been partially lifted too, with just one large section just below us remaining closed. It seems a sensible call, as there are numerous thirsty locks in that section, and it can get very busy seeing lots of boat movements in just one day. Just one narrow single-chambered lock, like those on the canal where we are currently located, will typically move some 30,000 gallons of water with each filling. And the wider double-chamber locks, able to take 2 narrow boats at a time, the figure rises to around 80,000 gallons. You can see why the old canal companies fought so vigorously to protect their water, policing all who used it and demanding payment for those who did, and then bitterly fighting over ownership to waters and its sources. But things are going in the right direction. Although I feel desperately sorry for all the holiday makers, as well as the hire companies who must have been hit so badly, not having the locks in use has really helped to stabilize the levels, here at least. And on the subject of stoppages and closures, I had a great question from listener Bill Thomas on the Nighttime on Still Waters Facebook group page. Bill wrote to ask about what actually happens when a canal is closed. Does everybody have to evacuate and get off it? And it's a really good question, as issuing a closure order must seem a bit of a strange and rather difficult thing to implement. Network or section closures are terms that are readily bandied about for some time by those of us on the waterways and probably come up from time to time in canal vlogs. And if you've been watching any of them recently, I'm sure that you will have heard the terms being used. However, as with all terminologies that develop within specific groups or communities, it's easy to forget that what makes perfect sense to us might not be quite so clear to those coming across them for the first time. So, first of all, to answer Bill's questions, no, you're not expected to evacuate or even move your boat. Although the inference is that, should you choose to stay, you take responsibility for anything that might go wrong. You might have come across posts on social media citing an email that was sent by the Canal and River Trust, the organisation that oversees most of the canals in Britain, and some of the rivers too, which advised all boaters to return to their permanent or winter moorings or find mooring spots close to facilities, as a significant number of closures were about to be enforced. And this put paid to many boaters' summer's cruising plans. However, all this talk of closures is not quite as draconian as it probably might sound. Hordes of elite Special Forces CRT personnel are not quietly airdropped by helicopter all along the cut under cover of night, sealing off the canals and erecting barricades and checkpoints all down the navigation. Essentially what happens is that the CRT sends us a notification that a section is closed to use, with an explanation for why this decision has been made. Quite often it will involve a lock, and if the lock is closed, effectively that means you just can't go through it, and so therefore movement stops anyway. Often during the winter it is about locks and repairing them, so a stoppage is basically you just can't go through it because there's no water in the lock. However, in cases that we're experiencing at the moment where long stretches of canal are effectively closed, even those without locks, it is slightly different. Whilst sometimes strategic locks are padlocked, for example at the top and bottom of a busy flight of locks, which makes them again impossible to use, most of the time it's a question of, it's in the interest of the canals and everyone using them, so please don't use this section. And there is a tacit assumption that the majority of canal users will all pull together and do what's best. In other words, there's a basis of trust on both sides, and the assumption of goodwill in adhering to the advice, even if it might not be to the individual's best interests. For example, they might need to go somewhere for boat maintenance, and it could so easily have been us earlier in the summer, or they just need to return to their home mooring. But I like it that way. And I have to say that for the most part, it works. Unfortunately, you are always going to get that small minority who think better or will go ahead regardless. Or sometimes simply genuinely who haven't got the message. And I have to say, in my experience, it is more often than not private owners and not hire boats, as is often assumed, that are the guilty parties here. And the pressure on hire boat companies to continue regardless must have been horrendous. But, and again, I can only speak about those local to us. Respect where it is due, they have adhered to the advice and stopped their business, and taking what must be a really significant financial hit. Not just for this year, but I'm sure for years to come. For people whose holidays have been cancelled, I'm sure they're going to think twice about hiring a boat in the future. And news is also beginning to come out of other businesses, some very old and established ones that are on the brink of bankruptcy, some having, they say, lost around 80% of their income this year. So, what is to stop me continuing to cruise on a closed canal? To be honest, nothing. Really, unless I come across a gate that is padlocked or taped off. We saw a similar thing occurring during the COVID lockdowns. There's a strong community feeling among boaters, and you'd certainly get a pretty hard time from them. And I think the CRT rely on the community feeling among boaters, and also the very real prospect of damaging your boat through grounding to enforce this travel ban. And after the first few days here, when there was a trickle of boats still going past, the closure here is holding surprisingly well and seems to be working. And small journeys to and from service points, water, waste, rubbish, etc., are still allowed. And the strict 14-day mooring rule has been relaxed so that most people can tie up close to service points, making travel unnecessary. And as I said, it seems to be working, around here at least. And by far the majority of people are all pulling together and working for the common good rather than self-interest. And now the rains are beginning to come, and the slow recovery has hopefully started. Once again, thank you so much for getting in contact with me since last episode. And it was great to hear from Sue Walker. Sue sent me an email in which she noted all the amazing similarities and connections that we have. In addition to boat life, she and her husband bought a narrowboat, again roughly at the same time that we did, and on which they live around about 10 months a year. She also mentions growing up just a couple of miles down the road from where I grew up. And I'm guessing, Sue, from the way you describe the areas, roughly at the same time as me. And she also mentions Chipperfield, a village just up the road from King's Langley where I lived, to which she moved after marrying. Chipperfield was again very much part of my stomping ground. I'm not sure if you can still do it. I hope you can. But I used to love walking there, as you could walk the whole distance without using any roads, just over fields and through woodlands. Something of a rarity in that part of Hertfordshire. And amazingly, there's also a connection with Herne Bay, where my grandparents lived and where Sue went on holiday in a caravan that her parents owned. So thank you, Sue, and thank you for your very kind words about the podcast. And I hope your patchwork quilt is coming on, and the water conditions are easing for you down there too. And hello over there to our old friend Lee Thomas. I'm really pleased that you enjoyed the last episode, Lee, and also extremely pleased to hear that the torrential rain that you've been having has now hopefully alleviated somewhat the risk of wildfire. Those wildfires are terrifying. And hello to Captain Arlo, and thank you for your email, Captain. And in lieu of any passing bears rummaging through his New Jersey backyard, he sent me a photograph of his cat, Nova. And mighty fine Nova looks too, Captain. Thank you. And greetings, of course, to mine Shambles. And thank you for your thoughts on AI. Yeah, it's a really vexed area. And I loved your 2 examples that you raised, and particularly the one about AI being used to thumb a rosary and recite prayers. Oh boy, you really sent me down a rabbit hole with this one, as it got me thinking about other traditions, particularly those in the East that utilize wind and water to generate prayers. Something, I guess, rather nonsensical to the Western mind and religions, like it's sort of cheating, but it makes perfect sense within the Eastern worldview. I mean, I just really take your point, and I think that both examples neatly sum up the problems of using Gen AI. But you've raised for me some fascinating questions, so much so I think I'm going to have to set them out before my philosophy and theology students when they come back at the beginning of term and get their ideas on it. So thank you. And I also love kettle as your favourite word. Yes, so many wonderful and rich resonances and connotations to it. And hello to LJ, and of course to Bodhi too. And also to Jason Polite, and to Tracy Thomas and Deb Moon Manfred. Hope you're all well and doing fine. And finally, a huge thank you to all of our Lockwheelers for supporting this podcast. They are Susan Baker, Mind Shambles, Clare Hollingsworth, Kevin B., Fleur and David Mcloughlin, Lois Raphael, Tanya Yorgay, Andrea Hansen, Chris Hines, Chris and Alan on the narrowboat The Land of Green Ginger, Captain Arlo, Rebecca Russell, Alison on the narrowboat Mucker, Derek and Pauline on Silver Fox, Anna V, Orange Cookie, Mary Keane, Tony Rutherford, Arabella Holtzapfel, Rory with MJ and Kayla, Narrowboat Precious Jet, Linda Reynolds Birkins, Richard Noble, Carol Ferguson, Tracy Thomas, Mark and Tricia Stowe, and Madeline Smith. Thank you. Let's go down to the river, now that September has come, slipping soft and stealthily. Let's go down to the river now that the dusty heat of summer has begun to settle, and the winds ride on curtains of much-needed rain. Let's go down to the river, where the water is alive and sings unknown songs to ancient currents dark and deep. Let's go down to the river and see what we can see, for the canal is quiet, almost sleeping. The closure's still in place, and the water level, although still low, is beginning to rise. So for now, the canal is resting. The locks lie motionless. The moorhens and coots scuttle and bustle, undisturbed by boats passing by, exploring the embryonic trickles of water that are beginning to appear again in the bywash. The ducks are left in peace to doze center stream. So let's leave the canal for a short while, at peace, healing, recuperating, and come, stand with me on the banks of the Avon on this blue and grey September day, with the wind chasing leaves and litter around our ankles, and squally showers and wind gusts that leave their footprints across the water. Wait long enough, and you can see the next bluster come to you, moments before you feel it brushing your face and playing with your hair like the lover that September is. Spits of rain fleck the air as the skies ahead turn tumultuous. This part of the river acts like a bit of a seaside promenade for the town. People come down here to stroll along the paths that line both sides of the bank. To take in the air and see the sights. To catch a bit of nature, even if it is all rather tailored and closely choreographed within concrete, paving slabs and neatly trimmed flower beds. Shoals of rowing boats knock and cluster alongside pontoons. Thick, varnished dark wood, each bearing the name picked out in gold lettering of a Shakespearean character. The river laps and chuckles beneath them, and swans shoulder their way alongside. Wide and shallow concrete steps sweep down to the water's edge here. Under the huge canopy of a sweet chestnut tree, tucked into a corner, it's a good spot to linger, to watch the swans and the bickering gulls, to people watch, to lose yourself in the ever-moving patterns and sun-glanced dimples of the water. The boats clunk and clang against the pontoon. Boats for hire proclaims a large red sign. Although all the time I've been here, no one's taken up the offer. This pontoon's run by two young girls who sit in one of the boats, chattering to each other the whole time. And above us, the sleeping bat-like leaves of the chestnut quiver and tremble as another shower begins to fall, like dancers shaking their limbs when they're limbering out. There's a constant stream of people passing by, hastily buttoning jackets, zipping anoraks, pushing buggies with small heads watching the world weep and melt behind their plastic covers. Look, see, a group of young mothers, with a collision of prams and pushchairs, stop beside the statue of an actor declaring his line to an unanswering sky. They take pictures of each other with their phones, their hair whipping around their faces in the wind, blown awry. And the sun now plays hide and seek among the clouds in the now slate-grey river. A woman sits on a bench, sipping a drink from the cup of a thermos flask. A dog lies at her feet. And I begin to jot down some notes in my notebook. More spots of rain begin to fall, and one lands on the word that I am still writing, wind. And the ink bleeds and smears into a smudged blot. I'm strangely annoyed, frustrated perhaps. I've only just taken out my notebook. Perhaps it's with me that I am annoyed. I have had plenty of time before now to write down my notes. And it isn't as if the sky overhead hasn't given me enough warning of inclemency. But I'm also, at the same time, struck by how perfect, how apt what has just happened is. In trying to capture squally rain showers, the very words that I am writing are turning into water. Was it only just a little over a week ago that we were being alerted to a yellow heat warning, and we clung to the shadows, picking out our coolest summer clothes? Now it feels as if autumn is here. Auburn is here, and we should be digging out our woolies and big coats, though it's still much too warm for anything other than a light rain jacket over a t-shirt. It does feel somehow as if the picture on the calendar has been turned over. Along the hedgerows, elderberries and honeysuckle entwine in gold and indigo brocades. It all feels as if we should be cradling warming mugs of hot drinks in our hands and scuffing our feet through large piles of fallen leaves. And groups of people pass, swaddled in coats with their hoods up. Umbrellas pirouette down the streets, and down here by the river pull like kites in the wind. When the sun comes out, it's summer again. A summer washed clean. And gulls wheel and scythe in a brand new sky, and below them the river sparkles with sunlight in delight. A group of tourists, following a tour guide, snake their way through a knot of sightseers in an unmusical conga line. Pigeons and gulls dance and hop around their feet. They have come for the sights and for Shakespeare and for an England that has never really existed, and yet is one we all know so well. Most are elderly, but here they are somehow transmogrified back into school children, falling back into the childhood rhythms and patterns of the children that their older bodies clothe. Follow the teacher, crocodile line. The only thing they're not doing is holding hands, or at least most aren't. And most appear to half listen to the guide. Some stragglers more interested in things not being talked about. And an elderly man with a shock of white hair wears a brand new pastel blue sweatshirt with Oxford University written on it. A very un-Oxford kind of blue. Its packing fold still visible by the deep creases incised across his chest and down each sleeve. He walks stooped, mechanically following the person ahead, eyes down, absorbed deeply in his guidebook. Deaf to the tour guide comes schoolmaster, who casts his eyes over his straggling disciples and waves above his head a furled umbrella. Where would I be? Where would you be if we were in that group? Within that tight-knit group at the heels of the umbrella-toting guide, devouring every word that pours without breath from his mouth? Or maybe lagging behind the rest at the party, in danger of getting lost, being left behind, chattering to a newfound friend, or catching glimpses of the world that lies just outside the orbit of the official tour. Or maybe with that gentleman with his brand new sweatshirt, studiously reading his guidebook. The river draws them down here, like it draws us, down to its banks to watch the light dance, to listen to its weedy green songs. Oh, here come 6 old boys filled with the spirits of their youths. I see grey and white hair, broken trainers and the clap of walking sticks, scruffy jackets straining to remain buttoned. They see none of that. Just the whiff of Brill cream and the roar of motorbike or scooter the chase of love and heartbreak and the glory of a world to be taken. I can see it in their faces, in the excitement of the loud, rich roll of their northern voices flattening the vowels, each noun patinaed with an expletive, and cheeky, daring grins. It's like some archaic dialect, which I suppose in some senses it is. Watch out, Stratford town. The boys are back. The boys are back in town. I struggle to place what all this reminds me of. And then I have it. It's down here, on the pontoons, under that chestnut tree that weeps raindrops and leaves upon the clustered rowing boats that jostle and bob beneath them. It's those two young girls, looking after the boats, and the way they talk. The excitement, the animation, how their voices climb over each other's. And now the rain begins to fall in earnest. Further up the riverside walk, along the slick boardwalk, we shelter beneath some oak and chestnuts. And 8 swans gather, splashing and nuzzling the water. One of them snortles, and I'm immediately stabbed with a sense of loss. For all their stroppy behaviour and messy nuisance, I miss our little swan family, saying hello, watching their progress. The rain gets heavier. Some people take shelter, most carry on walking. 2 elderly couples seek refuge under a tree, shaking the wet from their glistening coats. There's still a cheerfulness with the rain, or at least a knowing tolerance in its acceptance. We've not yet got to the point of complaining.
There's a stress response in them.
Along the road behind us, cars swish in a cat's comb. The rain falls in thin wetting drops that pebble dash the river. On a river, you don't get that play of rings you get when rain falls on the still waters of the canal. The current continuously washes them away. Instead, it's more about a flash of light. My trousers begin to stick to my legs, which reminds me that I could really do with a black coffee, thick with crema. Preferably drunk while sitting in a small coffee house, while gazing out of a rain-streaked window at the crowds of pedestrians scuttling down glistening white pavements. I know of just the place. Fingers crossed for a window seat. But not quite yet. Retracing our steps, the rain eases once more. Light glances off the choppy waters in dazzling, sparking shards that are almost blinding. Scrunched foil. The clouds above us build in height, castling black and growly. For now, we have a short respite. And just down from us, a small girl in pigtails and Wellingtons races through a group of pigeons and gulls and shouts with delight at creating a reverse snowstorm of wings and blur. On the opposite bank, a crane moves heavy iron girders, and the river flows ever on. Around the corner where the willows form massing green cataracts of weeping cliffs, and on to the tall spire of Holy Trinity Church. It's an iconic view, recalling England's of the heart, a potent and potentially dangerous siren call these days of fracture and discord. And the river continues to flow ever on. We're being left behind. We too, standing here on the bank on a day of chasing sunshine and showers, watching the river pass on by, round the bend to where the chain ferry sits, and then on and ever on. One day we'll take the plunge, cast off from the bank, and we'll join that flow, riding that living dance of light, gull scalded, until we become so one with it, we too become indistinguishable from the water, like a word hardly written on a notebook in the rain. So let's just stay here a little while longer, amongst all the milling people, and the scavenging pigeons, and the bullying swans, and the hectoring gulls, and watch some more. A group of pigeons trot along the paving, assured, chippy, cocky. One is light fawn in colour. Their heads jerk backwards and forwards as their bodies swagger with all the nonchalance of John Wayne. 6 old boys have reincarnated already, trading walking sticks for wings. And a man eating his sandwiches bends low and offers them some crumbs. A lone swan glides up, trying his luck with us. I wish I had the patience and good-naturedness of swans. Well, that's a sentence I never thought I would hear myself saying. But these swans, they come up to whoever is there, standing at the water's edge, like eager Labradors, a little tail wag, a dip of their head on their proud serpentine neck. And when I do not move, there's no ill will. He seems happy just to wait, to share the time. Floating beside me, pushing back against the current with his great black webbed feet that hang like leaves of this horse-chestnut tree. From time to time, he scratches behind his ear, or ruffles through his thick wing feathers with his beak. From under the bridge, one of the river cruise launches honks its horn as it clears the left-hand main arch. Its cream and white paint and varnished woodwork whispers of opulence, and yesterday's dreams of Hollywood stars on the Côte d'Azur, and playboys sporting captains' hats in Venice. It's coming in to moor up to where we are standing. Let's wait and watch. As they come in, a shiver runs right across the river from the far bank towards us. The light turns steely and grey. The launch takes a curving sweep in towards the bank. The water turns dark and lumpy, light playing off the ridge and furrow of its ruffled surface. Fat raindrops begin to fall, as once more the sky is open. This is the narrowboat Erica, signing off for the night and wishing you a very restful and peaceful night. Good night. Temperature outside 16.4 degrees, inside 21 degrees, humidity 55%, dew point 8 degrees, wind direction southeast, wind strength 11 miles per hour, barometric pressure 1012.9 falling, cloud cover 30%, cloud ceiling 4,000 feet, precipitation nil, moon phase 99.1% waxing gibbous, day length 13 hours 16 minutes, sunset 1943, sky casting 6:28.